I want to get into another dynamic here and switch gears and talking a little bit about Sikhi and Gurbani associated with this. We talked a little bit about Hukam, and we talked a little bit about acceptance and maybe forcing acceptance that comes in there. I think one of the main things that we're really paying attention to is emotions or normal expression. So let's kind of jump into that experience and talk about it in terms of Gurbani. Okay. So the journey of cosmic healing. Okay. So we are on a profound journey of healing a cosmic grief. And Gurbani is a form of mastery for this healing in our life. Okay. The separation from our Atma from our Paramatma, our individual soul to the great soul, is a great source, an original source of our suffering. This is a component of a cosmic grief that we have as a relationship of our life overall. It's a wound we all carry, and we all seek healing for this divine pain that we carry. Okay. Gurbani is a teacher that helps to offer this healing balm for this great pain of separation. All right. So this Shabad really speaks to me in a very dynamic way. This is often seen in Shabadazare as a Nitnem Bani. Miramana lochin Gurdarshana tai, pil pakre chatrit kiniyai, Trikan utre shantanave, pin darshana sant piare jio. My mind longs for the blessed vision of the Guru's darshan. It cries out like a thirsty songbird. My thirst is not quenched, and I can find no peace without the blessed vision of the beloved saint. Yeah. This is a very beautiful Shabad that helps speak to this pain that we may be feeling that underlies some of the losses that happen in our life. In other words, this loss or this feeling of separation, of a loss of an identity of who we are as a soul, right, can be one of the elements that perpetuate some of the other losses that we have in our life, that can make grief much more dynamic and maybe a little bit painful in a context, say like a loss of a loved one or a loss of a pet. We may grieve so extensively from them, or that pain of that grief may be so hard, but there may be a root cause. This is my Chinese medicine perspective, looking for the root cause of where the illness or the pain or where the lack of movement is coming from. And so Gurbani pulls us, okay? Gurbani pulls us towards God's realization, towards Ik Onkar, towards oneness, okay? Gurbani is a mystical poetry in a story of the soul bride and the husband lord, the Sohagan, okay? So when we say Gurbani pulls us, we're saying that Gurbani in Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji is talking about the human condition from the most base form, but all the way extended it to this most mystical aspect of divine revelation, the most aspect of this divine connection in our life, okay? And so sometimes that we want to be able to have an experience of this, right? So it's a Shabad Guru, it's a divine poetry, and it offers us Amrit, this divine sweetness to heal our dukh, this divine suffering. Jat mein jot mein jata, akal kala bharpur reha. Your light is in your creatures, and your creatures are in the light. You're almighty, powerful, and pervading everywhere. You see, Sikhi is a pantheistic faith. And so sometimes the mind is very difficult to get an understanding about all of these things. Okay? So from the formless comes form. And from that form exists as a duality. Okay? And then from that duality, there's the element of the mind, the ego, and the feelings of separation. And from that expression of this separation, and from this duality, from formless to form, we're trying to seek this ever-present, omnipresent divinity that's all around. But the mind gets stuck in its logical, rational, compartmentalized, labeling-oriented way. And some emotions start to come with it. And Gurbani talks a lot about these emotions. Love, lobh, kam, krodh, moh. These experiences of lust and anger, pride, greed, and attachment. And Guruji talks about for us not to get stuck in them. But in a surface level, when we read Gurbani or talk about Gurbani, we may feel that these emotions, that on the surface level, that we can interpret it, that these emotions equal bad. So we seek to deny them or fight them or push them away or feel that they're evil in our life. And this can perpetuate a grieving process that becomes complex, chronic, delayed, and masked into a somatic experience. This is very, very powerful. So when we take a deeper dive into the emotional awareness, the emotional resiliency, maybe even the psychology of Sikhi, there's a part of us that wants to have this understanding. There's a difference between dwelling in emotions versus feeling the emotions. There's a difference between having an addiction to the behavior associated with emotions and feeling the emotions and allowing them expression and not identifying by them. Okay? So this is a simple way to understand this, is understood through trauma physiology. When we get a wound, the physiology seeks to protect. It sends blood and inflammatory markers that manifest as swelling. Sometimes the body protects too much and makes the injury into chronic pain. It needs treatment to break up the scar tissue and immobility. And sometimes the physiology becomes so confused that it becomes an autoimmune process, and the body becomes unaware of what is threat and what is safety. Okay, this is very important, and this is an understanding for how the ego does the same way. This is like the ego. The ego serves to protect, and it serves to live. We need it to live in this world, to be a human, to live Grist. We have to have an ego. We have to have an element of living in our life. But it can sometimes forget, and we may have a wound or a pain in our life, and the ego is like, no, I gotta protect it. Then the ego becomes too much, it becomes chronic, and we totally forget about the original wound, and we create these defense mechanisms and these coping strategies and become debilitated by the myths of grief that are associated within this. So Guruji offers the balm for the ego in the form of Gurbani. Okay, and it's very important. So is there a tuk? Is there a shabad? Is there something that helps heal grief? Well, there's so many. You could look at all of Gurubani as a form of helping to heal some of this cosmic grief. Mul Mantar, beautiful for feeling when we're wandering as a soul in this life, not knowing our direction of where it is we want to go. Sukhmani Sabji Part is so beautiful for connecting to a deep peace and connecting to the one in all things. Chopai Sahib Part, oh my goodness. Guru Gobind Singh Ji's beautiful ardas and helps us to heal from trauma or our feelings of cosmic. All of Gurubani can help with this. So this is a very important thing. So then where does Hukam come into this context, right? So God's Hukam, Guru's Hukam. So Hukam is a form of what we say acceptance. Or we say Hukam is a form of the things that we say is a reality. It is what is existing, okay? And so sometimes in a grieving process, we try to force our place to acceptance, force our place into the reality that the person we have lost, they're gone. But that can also be turned into over-rationalizing. That can also be turned into a way in which we create logic into an emotional space. And the emotions don't vibe with logic in that same way. So while there may be God's hukam that somebody died in a traumatic way, our way of experiencing that feeling is so powerful. So we want to get into a space where we can emotionally heal and work through what we refer to as those myths of grief and override those into places that are effective and healing in our emotional body so that we can feel and see where the dynamic of the meaning or the purpose around the loss is there. They say in Gurbani, in Japji Sahib Part, Ketia duk buk sadmar ebi dat tari datar. But that can be something as a hukamnama or as a shabad that can override in a way that if we look at that superficially, it says, no, this is a gift. Oh no, this is a good thing that happens. Oh no, things will be better after this loss. But that can also override and rationalize and over-rationalize the experience of somebody that invalidates their feeling, that first myth of grief. So what we want to do is say that, oh, Gurbani is stretching us. It pulls us into a mystical reality that we can see God in all things, feel God in ourselves and in that connection. But it's not saying don't feel or be present into the emotions or to the emotional space that is happening. So to get to a place of understanding the gift or the gratitude that comes with the hukam of God, which by no means will I be able to ever explain, nor will I even try to, is about an experience that we can come into a relationship of it. Viktor Frankl was a a psychiatrist that survived the Holocaust. And he wrote a very amazing book called Man's Search for Meaning. He wrote this book talking about the stories of surviving the Holocaust. And getting to the other side of that book, he talks about a powerful book, a form of therapy called logotherapy. And in there, he's giving them so much depth of understanding that when we're seeking meaning, is not seek meaning in a rational way for our whole life, but seeking meaning for the moment. So when we feel that we may be grieving something, and we feel maybe from Gyani, maybe from Ragi, or maybe from experiences of people in our life. Now, this is God's Hukam. Yes, it's a fact. Yes, this is the way it is to be. Yes, I can accept that. But it overrides and invalidates our feeling. Then what is the meaning of our experience within that moment in terms of the feelings that are coming up? It could be a profound form of spiritual growth and awareness because it's teaching us about our soul and our journey, about how we feel and how we experience.